For the past year, most of us have experienced a pandemic as a daily disaster story with old routines replaced by new frontiers in technology and scientific breakthroughs. If that sounds like the makings of science fiction, then you have all the more reason to log on for the 46th run of the Boston Science Fiction Film Festival. To help us navigate through the lineup is the festival's director, Garen Daly. Thank you very much for being with us, Garen.
Thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Garen, I'm going to start with some history behind this festival because it's all linked with a certain place that had a certain name, which was also very much about science fiction. Orson Welles. Give us a little bit of that story.
Well, for those of us who are old enough, we can remember that the art house in Boston was a place called the Orson Welles Cinema, located at 1001 Mass Ave outside of Harvard Square. And the way I usually love to preface this with, so that people can be in slight awe of it, is that the first house manager was some dude named Tommy Lee Jones in his first gig in the business. And people like Francis Ford Coppola. I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen the photo of Francis Ford Coppola on the set of Apocalypse Now, and he's got a gun pointed to his head. Well, if you look closely, he's wearing an Orson Welles Cinema t-shirt. So the Orson Welles Cinema was the place. It was a 3-screen restaurant, film school, library. It encompassed everything. Stephen King used to hang out in the lobby before he became an author and famous. So the Orson Welles was that. And our origins was the Orson Welles week-long horror and science fiction film festival. And over the years, we have morphed and changed as the industry has morphed and changed. So where we are in our current iteration as a virtual festival because of the pandemic.
Well, I know in this year's lineup, you pay tribute to this intersection between the past and the future. And one of these films is called Tune Into the Future, which also reminds me of a movie called Pulp Fiction in a way. Tell us a little bit about that one.
Tune Into the Future is a documentary about Hugo Greensback. And interestingly enough, in 1921, Hugo Greensback was a visionary, and he coined the term science fiction in 1921. So we're celebrating the 100th anniversary of the coining of that phrase. But he was a visionary who saw all sorts of things coming up, cell phones, drones, an amazing amount of people. And he influenced a ton of people in the 20s and 30s and 40s, so that his impact is still being felt today.
Chris, there's another film in the lineup, and this one is about parallel reality, parallel universes. It's a strange sort of mixture as far as the genres here, because we're talking about science fiction, interracial romance. Walk us through this one.
Are we talking about Between the Waves?
Exactly, Between the Waves.
One of the interesting things about this, because I've been doing this for so long, and I love getting all these films together and start seeing these trends emerging. And one of the trends that we're seeing now is multiverses, where people can relive their life by going into another parallel universe. And so that's what this story is about. It's about a woman, and a middle-aged woman, not some young, good-looking Hollywood babe, but an attractive human being who has lost her lover and has to travel through different parallel universes to discover that person again and to find out what the mystery is between the parallel universes. It's a really interesting way of telling a love story.
It also reminded me a little bit of the premise for one of the classics from back in the 1960s, Chris Marker's La Jetée.
La Jetée. Which again is one of those films that is a touchstone for everything in science fiction. I mean, Chris Marker's film, everyone talks about it. And in fact, in our marathon segment this year, we are actually showing 12 Monkeys, which is yet another homage to Chris Marker's La Jetée.
Chris, one of the other things that you find so unusual and unexpected in this festival here is you have science fiction meeting with Shakespeare and trauma films, which I never heard of until I was just sort of brushing up on this. And this is a sort of a send up of not only The Tempest, but political correctness. I mean, how can you put all that into one single film and call it Shakespeare's? Maybe you should use the word.
Well, I will, because I have no more. I have no shame. It's called Shakespeare's Shitstorm. It's directed by Lloyd Kaufman. Now, some folks know who Lloyd Kaufman is. Lloyd Kaufman is probably one of the quintessential 20th and 21st century independent film directors. He has been making films for as long as I have been showing films. And so that's 40 years. He created The Toxic Avenger. He did another riff on Shakespeare called Romeo and Juliet. And so this is this guy. It might be his last film, but it is, again, exactly what you said. Is he takes The Tempest, rips it apart, throws it on the screen with a whole bunch of flotsam and jetsam, and also talks about political correctness. It's classic Lloyd Kaufman. You may not like it, but you could easily be grossed out by it, but he does have something to say, and I love the fact that he is in our festival. It's great.
Another film entry in an entirely different spirit is called Mr. Hand Solo.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that one.
All right. So this to me is one of those. When you start off doing a festival like this, you start looking around the world for films. And I found this film in Andorra. I mean, think about that for a second. How many people even know where Andorra is? Let alone that it's like, I think the second or third.
Was this like not quite Spain, not quite France or something like that?
It's in the Pyrenees, you know? So I've never seen, and I've been in the business for a long time, I've never seen a film from Andorra. Anyways, it's a documentary, and it's an inspiring documentary. It's about a young man by the name of David Aguilar, who is born with Poland syndrome, which means that one of his arms has never developed. It's really short, small, and barely used. In the course of the film, we learn about how his family supported him and how he was undaunted by this. And he also had a passion for Legos. So he created himself a Lego prosthetic arm. I mean, it's one of those great human interest stories, and it's wonderful and uplifting, especially at a time like now when we are facing so much challenges from a pandemic, to find an uplifting story of hope from a young man who was born with a deformed arm.
Well, the Science Fiction Film Festival wouldn't be complete without something that was at least a little bit like Godzilla, except we're talking about maybe seafood. So,
well, so the tagline that I've thrown to this is Kaiju meets sushi, and it's a satire on the kaiju role that plays in Japanese films. Godzilla's kaiju, all these big monsters are kaiju, but anyways, what happens is someone throws some sushi into the river, and it's polluted, and of course it turns into a monster. So all of a sudden, the sushi that we've been eating is now eating us. And apparently the sushi has a taste for raw human beings.
I want to ask you about making this festival work, because it's pretty much a cliche that movies are better in the theater where you got the size, you get the sound system, but so how are you going to make this engaging online for people?
Well, wow, it's something we spent a lot of time looking at, and what we ultimately decided is that we needed more than one virtual platform. So we have 3, possibly 4 if you include the live format. But so we have a technical platform called Fesso, which is based out of Spain. We have a social interactive platform called Socio Events, which is out of Indiana. And we have Swank Motion Pictures virtual proprietary platform so that we can show the films in the marathon. We also use StreamYard, which allows us to have a little studio and create live stuff. And all of that is working. It's a little bit more expensive, But the idea is to try and create exactly what you were just saying. How do we try and create something that is going to be interactive? Now, I'm a historian of entertainment and I love it. But if we take a look at the entertainment industry, vaudeville was replaced by radio. Radio was replaced by TV. TV was replaced by VHS. VHS and cable destroyed, and it just keep going on with the different technological advances. Each time the technological advances came on, entertainment morphed and shifted. The old formats continued, but they were changed. I expect that what we're going to be seeing is that the virtual format will become another tool to enhance our ability to have live events. And we'll have live events in hopefully 12 to 18 months from now.
You've been working in this festival for a long time. It can get formulaic pretty fast, maybe, but and maybe this has been going through my head when I go on YouTube and I look at Rod Serling in the Twilight Zone for one more time. What makes you want to revisit?
It's interesting you mentioned Rod Serling because I grew up with Rod Serling. I couldn't wait when I was a kid to be able to watch the Twilight Zone. And people ask me, what is my definition of science fiction? I go, if Rod Serling would play it, I'll play it. I figure you go to the masters. You ask about the formulaic part about it. One of the pieces I love about the entertainment business, it's always changing. It has to change. And if you stand still in the entertainment business and maybe in life, you're not going to move anywhere. You're going to be a bump on a log. And I love the idea. And there's something that's so empowering about what's going on inside the film industry right now. The means of production are in the hands of people. Young people, old people, anybody can grab a cell phone and make a movie. You can make a movie now for $50,000 or $60,000, and it's really good looking. You couldn't do that 25 years ago. So now there's this explosion of all these people making movies, and they're telling stories. We have 50 shorts, 50 different stories from 50 filmmakers in our shorts blocks alone. Those stories, some of them they're just mind-blowingly great. And that is the future because I see that. And then we have the features, and our features are a combination of submitted and curated. So a lot of them are submitted. You were talking about Between Waves. That was a submitted film for us. Tune In Tomorrow. That was submitted to us. Han Solo, we curated. But the breadth of the stories that are being told out there prevent anyone from being lethargic or lazy about what's going on in film.
Finally, Garen, this starts tonight and people want to log on. How do they do that?
Well, they go to bostonsci-fi.com and then we'll direct them from there. And an important thing to remember is that a film opens at a specific time and runs completely through until midnight on the 15th. And you can watch that film anytime, only once, but anytime during that period. That's one of the advantages of a virtual film festival. You can say, okay, I want to watch this one, this one, this one, this one, buy your tickets, and then watch it at your leisure. You could watch a film at 3 o'clock in the morning if you have insomnia.
Yes, time and virtual time. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks, Chris. Really appreciate it, man.
Garen Daly from the Boston Science Fiction Film Festival. We'll have more news in just a moment.